My guest today has over 13 years in the mental health field. He has worked with individuals using cognitive behavioral therapy and addressing anxiety, ADHD, gender identity, trauma-related depression, and personality disorders. He specializes in working with adolescents and adults to promote their social, emotional, and positive well-being as citizens in the community. He provides an eclectic and holistic approach to integrated care while understanding various modalities such as dialectical behavioral therapy in order to promote the importance of physical, emotional, and psychological balance as well as awareness. He provides an array of mental health services, including family and couples therapy, individual and group therapy. He seeks to provide culturally relevant, diverse, and sensitive care through a variety of treatment modalities that focus on the mind, body, and spirit, as he focuses on the stigma of mental health and continue to be an avid social change advocate. In addition to being licensed clinical mental health counselor, therapist, he is also the host of a mental health radio show podcast called The Couch 704, where he addresses all topics surrounding mental health in order to reduce the stigma associated with mental health in the community through providing psychoeducation in a relaxed atmosphere. Please help me welcome Damion Harmon to the show.
Hey, you all screaming and stuff. I was like, who is this guy she's reading about? Like, that's a lot of stuff.
That's you.
That's a lot of stuff. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it for sure.
Absolutely, I appreciate you being here, being a guest. So, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. You know, trying to make it through all this stuff that we're dealing with, the pandemic and the protests and everything that's going on. This climate is kind of iffy, but today I'm good. I'm good
today. Good. Yeah, no, it is. It's definitely a heavy time. And, you know, with us just coming out of May, which was Mental Health Month, and then now we're in June, which is Men's Health Month. I thought this would be a perfect time to bring on someone like you to talk to us about mental health and specifically mental health in the African American male community.
Right. Thank you. I appreciate the invitation. You know, we're going to have some fun. We're going to talk about some things and be informative, but let's have some fun too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So why don't you tell my audience a little bit about yourself, your story, your journey, and how it has guided you to where you are today?
Wow, my story. I'm originally from Orangeburg, South Carolina, small town, maybe 30 minutes from Columbia. Grew up pretty much in a lower socioeconomic type of background, pretty much AKA the hood, where I was, you know, I witnessed a lot of different things from, you know, drug dealers to shootouts to, you know, that type of dysfunction that happens in our communities fairly often. You know, I hate to say that, but it does happen. So growing up in that particular neighborhood, you know, but I was also, I guess, took advantage of the opportunities that was given to me through my social supports and just networks with family and, you know, and in the community. So I was able to become like a peer mentor, you know, in high school leading into college. And that kind of, I gained some interest of working with like at-risk youth early on, you know, in high school and playing sports and being involved in things like that. It allowed me to see like a different perspective of living as well as how we manage certain situations. So then I graduated, you know, went to South Carolina State University. Well, I majored actually in business administration. I always wanted to own my own business. I just didn't know exactly what type of business, but I majored in that and still continuously working with at-risk youth. My aunt, she actually was the director of social services. And so she connected me with local schools where I work with a lot of kids within the school setting. And then I kind of just ultimately graduated from South Carolina State with a BS in management. But then, you know, once I moved to Charlotte, North Carolina, which I've been here since 2002, that was a long time. I'm getting old.
That's when I moved here. I moved here in 2002. Yeah. I moved here in 2002. Yeah.
Wow. So I started, you know, doing odds and end jobs, things like that. Didn't necessarily have a plan. But then I started back working, in the mental health field, doing community-based services with, you know, adolescents and adults and things like that. But it was kind of like it was a glass ceiling. I couldn't get as high as I wanted to in that particular field without, obtaining a higher level of education. So went back to school, got my master's degree in mental health counseling, and then, pursued my licensure after that. So once I became licensed, I wanted to kind of be that change and that advocate that allowed people to kind of understand, where we come from doesn't always mean like we have to stay that particular way, or just change our perception on life in general, and how our emotions kind of dictate our behavior. So with me going to school and getting I guess, an educational background, the psychology of how we think, it allowed me to kind of bring my own niche to this field, because I didn't see a whole lot of us, Black men, in this field. And a mentor by the name of Dr. Kendall Jasper, he's a psychologist. He's the first African-American guy, in the counseling field, in this profession, that I saw that was different. He wasn't the square dude with the hard bottoms and the Mr. Rogers sweater and, his legs crossed and, tell me how you're feeling, laying on the couch, that type thing. He brought a different swag to therapy and providing services in regards to mental health. And I wanted to kind of emulate that, but bring my own personality with it. So, over the years, I've cultivated my own type of niche within this particular field. And so now you have this guy, dark skinned, kind of round-the-way guy with a whole bunch of tattoos, but I'm talking about mental health. I'm such an oxymoron. I'm such not the average therapist, and that's kind of like one of my hashtags.
Right.
I'm not your average therapist, because I look different. I'm not your prototypical type of therapist, but I want to bring a different lens and a different perspective to mental health treatment. So that's me in a nutshell.
Love it. Love that story. Love that story. And so the gentleman that you just mentioned, so would you say that he was the one who kind of was most influential in your life? Because as you said, there's not that many Black male therapists out there for, for young Black men to look to emulate. And so, or well, at least maybe perhaps during the time that you were coming up. And so was it seeing him in that position that allowed you to see yourself as you are today?
Yeah, absolutely. I used to have a lot of conversations with him when I was doing basically case management. And he kind of persuaded me to go back to school and get my license, and, and be that change that I wanted to kind of see. And because I didn't see a lot of us in that particular field, I was like, well, why not me? Why couldn't I be the one that's kind of in these neighborhoods and, talking with families and breaking kind of like this generational curse that we've always assumed that we've had, as far as, we had to live in the hood, we had to live rough, we had to protect our emotions in a sense, and we couldn't be transparent and vulnerable because it would be perceived as being weak. And especially for Black men, that's our ego. We never want to be perceived as weak or easily being taken advantage of by the system or in our relationships, things like that. So we tend to come off more aggressive towards others, and we hide our emotions, like we cover our heart, like we guard it really closely. So so being able to kind of dive into that and see how he was bringing it, it allowed me to kind of understand, like, okay, I don't have to be this hard guy all the time. And it taught me the sense of, over time, that there is strength within vulnerability. Like, I'm giving you my blueprint of who I am, and what you decide to do with it is totally up to you. I'm going to be good either way, because I'm telling you who I am, and that just means that I'm comfortable with myself and I'm self-aware. So there's nothing that another person can do that can harm me in a sense that'll make me change who I am. So that's definitely a strength.
Absolutely. You mentioned the word, emotions and soft, and those are not necessarily things that men like to talk about in general, and quite frankly, that African American men don't want to associate the two with. So tell me, like, why is there such a stigma regarding mental health in the Black community, and especially among African American men?
Well, I think it's more so generationally, dating back to, when we came over here in slaves. It's more so of not showing that weakness and showing that strength is kind of like being able to withstand things over and over and over and not break. So when it comes to your mental health, we're human and we have emotions, and especially for men, like culturally, we've been taught to kind of cut off half of our emotions. We're taught happiness, we're taught necessarily anger, but we cut off sadness and we cut off fear. We're told not to fear anything but
Mhm.
God. We're told to man up. Don't cry if something hurts you. You don't cry. You just kind of like wipe your tears and kind of keep pushing. So that mentality as a child, it continues as an adult. And so we often appear to be strong in a sense and not asking anyone for help. So that stigma in itself causes people not to seek assistance, whether that's financial assistance, whether that's physical, whether that's emotional. We tend not to look for help because, again, we will be perceived as being weak because we're asking for assistance, because we don't know how to do
Yeah.
something or we don't have a solution for something. So that, again, that ego drives a lot of our negative thoughts and
Mhm.
that stigma that's associated with mental health. And of course, in the Black community, we've been taught that we don't talk about our problems. We keep
Mhm.
everything in house. You keep it within yourself, or you keep it within the household. So if there's household dysfunction, we don't talk about it to nobody else. Or you pray it away. You go to church and God makes sure everything is better. Talk to Jesus and we'll be good. But Jesus or God or whatever higher power that serve, in a sense, place people in your lives for
Mhm.
assistance to help you get through this thing we call life. So, just looking at it from those perspectives definitely heighten the stigma that's associated with mental health, because we never really had that depiction. Our depiction was, someone being locked away in a straitjacket, and just deranged and crazy, and all these different things on a severe
Yeah.
level. But you know I've had many individuals that often struggle with anxiety, but we didn't know what it was,
Yeah.
or
No.
depression, and
Hmm.
we didn't know what it was, or we didn't want to put a name to it because of the label that it brings. So it's for men, it's just more so of an ego thing and not necessarily being perceived as being weak as one of those main reasons why there's a huge stigma, especially in our community.
Yeah. No, I definitely see that. And you know what kind of makes me, sad about the situation, if I could use that word sad, is because I feel like when you don't allow yourself to be a full human, right? You don't
Hmm.
allow yourself to have that full human experience, which is happiness, sadness, anger, joy, all the different types of emotions. When you only can handle and deal with the positive so called emotions, you're not allowing yourself to be human. And
Right.
then unfortunately, because of that, we and whoever put off that perception to other people that we're not human,
Hmm.
because they don't see those
Exactly.
range of emotions. They only
Exactly.
see the, like you said, the strong, I can make it, I can deal with it, I'm not going to break type of, person. And
Hmm.
so then, the people on the outside don't get to see a full human. So they don't perceive you as that. Therefore, they don't give you that which you need,
Exactly. Exactly right.
you
It's
know?
it's that emotional intelligence and being able to understand that you, like you said, like you are a full human, and we have a wide range of emotions, and being able to display those things or just blocking those certain ones off to go into self-preservation mode or protective mode, does more harm than good. And, I'm not saying that, you should cry at the drop of a hat every time, but if you feel sad and your body wants to react in that particular way, then that's what you do, but a lot of times when we express hurt or sadness, it's usually easier for us to show anger rather than sadness, so though it makes it confusing for people, especially young children growing up. They normally usually have like temper tantrums and just bad behavior, but underneath all that, it may be hurt, it may be sadness, it may be trauma related, something like that. So we have to get more in tune with being able to allow children and individuals themselves, as adults, whoever, the ability and the freedom of all these emotions that we do have inside of us to kind of let it out. Because when we don't do that, we tend to internalize it. Then it leads to other things, whether that's addiction of whatever kind, substance abuse, sex addiction, bad relationships, toxicity, all these different things start to manifest as a result of you internalizing and stacking away negative emotions. So hopefully this is a springboard and an avenue for people to understand it's okay to not to be okay.
Yeah, it's okay not to be okay. Jesse J. For those who are fans, they know that one. Anyway, yeah, but back to the piece about, about it coming off as anger. I remember growing up, and I'm very close to my dad. I love my dad. I am a daddy's girl. But my dad, had a temper. He had a temper when I was growing up. And I just, growing up as a child, I just never could understand why does he get mad all the time and get angry all the time? And even sometimes just, with me, I saw that anger and I never ever wanted to experience it or see it. So, but I didn't know what was underneath all of that. I just thought he was a mean, angry person, though I loved him and wanted to please him, and and I did all those things through like academics and achievements, and that's a whole nother other story. But at the time, I just could not understand why he was so angry with things until I got older, and I understood that there was a lot of pain. Yes. And there was some sadness behind all of that. And that, the only way that he knew how to show that was through his anger. But behind that was the pain and the sadness. And it wasn't until I left and went to college that he softened and that he became this teddy bear of a man. And when I say soft, I don't mean soft in like a pushover, but like he became more in touch with his feelings and emotions. And then it just allowed me to see him in a completely different light and completely helped me kind of heal some of those areas in my life, younger life, that I had, pictures and stories in my mind of him. And it allowed me to say, you know what, you were hurting. You were hurting and you didn't know how to express it. And so I find that to be sad in the sense that I imagine that it can be so exhausting for men to have to carry that.
And it's like you, I kind of saw that growing up, with my dad, although he was in the house, he wasn't there, emotionally in a sense. My dad served in Vietnam, so a lot of those soldiers suffered from PTSD or drug abuse, things like that. And the way that they expressed it, was through substances. And when my dad wasn't drinking, or drunk in a sense, he just appeared to be this mean person. And it's just like, don't talk to me. Like, I literally considered I've never had like an in-depth, like sit down man-to-man conversation with my dad until he became ill, like prior to him passing, that's when he kind of softened up and kind of opened up a little bit more, because I guess he felt like, like this is my only time. I don't have too much left, and he appeared to be exhausted. in a sense. So, carrying around the weight of those emotions for decades,
Yeah.
it's heavy. And I tell my clients all the time, I can hold this cell phone up that I have, I can hold it up for maybe 10 minutes, but the longer I hold it, the heavier it gets and the more it hurts.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing in your emotions. The longer you hold on to things and drag things along with you, it becomes heavier and it's hard for you to bear, hard for you to actually enjoy life because you're just so smothered in, you're analyzing and you're so preoccupied in other things that you're not fully present in the moment and being able to enjoy life as it is.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Um, what are some of the signs that we, can see in a person if they're having mental health issues or they're battling with their mental health? Like, what are some of the things that,
Mhm.
we should be on the lookout to see in a person?
Well, I mean, it definitely ranges from what we're actually looking for. But if you're talking about maybe signs of depression or anxiety or something like that, when you definitely see the changes in mood, you have, huge highs and really low lows. When you notice that, that individual that used to be interested in a lot of different things, they tend to not want to do those things anymore. They stop hanging out with friends. They become more isolated. They don't talk as much. They may be complaining about not sleeping at all,
Mm.
insomnia, or they may be sleeping all the time, and the
Yeah.
same thing with their appetite. When the appetite goes away or they start to overeat, overindulge, those are some of the small things to kind of look out for. I always say that our emotional health is directly connected to our appetite and our sleeping patterns.
Mm.
If you're not sleeping well, your brain is telling you that something is off.
Yeah.
Something is off, and when you don't have an appetite, something is off. If you're overindulging in food, something is off because you're compensating or you're trying to feel something
Hmm.
with food. So those are some main things. Just people expressing, having a lower self-esteem, that change in how they view themselves or the world in a sense. Those ups and downs, like I said previously, is something to really look out for. But just overall motivation, hopelessness, helplessness, feeling unworthy, um, and in some cases, they may actually lash out. Depression isn't always about being in a corner and crying your eyes out and things like that.
Hmm.
It may become more of an aggressor or aggressive type of stance when someone is suffering from depression, or they're easily irritated, irritable all of the time, or they respond to certain situations or certain triggers in a certain way. If you've
Hmm.
been abused in a sense or in previous relationships or something like that, you're going to be easily startled if someone came up to you and kind of just jumped at you. You automatically flinch. That's a automatic response. Or if you complain about having ongoing nightmares or small little things kind of trigger, like watching TV and you see someone being beat up or badly injured or something like that. Those things may trigger anxiety. So it truly just depends on what diagnosis or what symptoms we're really trying to look for, because it's a wide range of diagnoses.
Right.
So to kind of pinpoint exactly what to kind of look for, you just gotta definitely, I would say, start out just looking in the changes in the mood. If
Hmm.
they're having severe lows, severe highs, like they don't have to sleep and they want to party all the time. They're, doing elaborate shopping, knowing that their budget doesn't allow it, and they're just kind of just doing things out of the norm.
Hmm.
Those things are kind of the things that I look for, in a sense.
Yeah. And so, if we have people who are able to identify those things in themselves and or family members, I know that sometimes, especially unfortunately for us in the Black community, there are health disparities. And so, what are some of the barriers for African American men in getting the help, mental health that they need?
It's a lot. I mean, first and foremost, stigma, as we stated before. Um, Barrier wise, just I think one of the biggest ones is the mistrust within the medical field overall, whether you're talking about
Yeah,
physical health or mental
yeah.
health. It's just an automatic distrust
Well, let me
because,
ask you a question on
yeah,
that. I'm sorry, I don't
absolutely.
mean to interrupt you because
No, you're good.
I hear this a lot. I've been blessed to have some really great doctors in my life that has helped me through some issues, and but I do hear that a lot from older people in my family. Of they talk about going to the doctor, and the doctor tell them to do X, Y, and Z, and they'd be like, "Oh man, I'm not gonna do that." That doctor don't know what they talking about, and I'm like, well, why are you going to him then? And I
Right.
mean, he got I don't understand. So
Right.
it is this thing of where I'm like, if you are not going to trust what they say, or why even waste the time to go?
Right.
So I never understood that because I've heard it a lot.
Mhm.
Why is there so much mistrust?
I think it stems from, a long history of the medical field not really valuing the African American man. Whether you go back to the Tuskegee experiment, where they
Hmm.
experimented on us, used us as guinea pigs or trying out different medications on us, like we're test dummies,
Right.
or not being culturally competent to understand that, our BMI may be a little bit different from our counterparts. Like we hold on weight and we're a little bit more
Right.
dense than
Hmm.
another culture would be. So their prognosis and diagnosis, sometimes would be incorrect.
For the
And so,
mainstream.
yes, exactly. So they'll be incorrect. And so we're getting inaccurate treatment, which shortens our life expectancy. So
Hmm.
when we're talking about mental health in a sense, we don't have enough culturally competent, practitioners, whether that's psychiatrists, people that administer the medications, or therapists that can kind of relate to the African American struggle, or their plight and what they're struggling with.
Hmm.
And we often struggle as a profession, especially other cultures, understanding certain symptoms and problems that we may present that they have no clue about. And so
Right.
they're looking at symptoms that's in a book. We have a check mark, we have a checklist. Okay, you meet criteria for this particular diagnosis, and it may be totally off.
Hmm.
They may say, well, I'm having difficulty focusing, or Johnny, he's just bouncing all over the place and he can't sit still and sustain attention for a long period of time. Oh, he has ADHD. But they don't do the background. They don't look into the family's background, home life, things like that. Johnny could have
Hmm.
been moving from house to house to house, or didn't know
Right.
where his next meal was coming from, or experienced domestic violence or something like that. So he's constantly on edge. So that's
Hierarchy of
more
needs.
exactly. So it's more so of a trauma than it is your inability to focus.
Yeah.
So I often deal with that a lot as far as with other clinicians and looking at diagnosis. Then I start working with a client, and I'm like,
Hmm.
no, you're not ADHD. You experience trauma, or you have
Hmm.
anxiety, or something like that. So the mistrust, and again, not being able to understand culturally, where we come from, and not having that therapeutic relationship, with your client often, or the practitioner themselves not having that client,
Yeah.
relationship,
Relationship.
often impacts your views on them, or your perspective on their ability to treat you, the way you need to be treated. you
Yeah.
know Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, you're good. I was going to say, no, I completely can understand that when you feel like you're not being seen, when you
Hmm.
feel like you're not being heard,
Right.
then when you feel those feelings, then you will have, mistrust.
Hmm.
And so what would you, say to a person, or to a person who's looking for a doctor, or whatever, and they have those types of feelings of mistrust, what can they do to help themselves trust their practitioner
Right.
and know that that practitioner is, giving them the best care?
Right. I mean, first and foremost, you can't control the other person, so understand what you're in control over. And from a personal standpoint, being able to be open and transparent in those emotions and how you're feeling about their ability to address your needs. You know,
Mhm.
Try to erase as many barriers as you possibly can. I'm not saying automatically if you're black, go to an African American physician or therapist or what have you, because there are a lot of individuals, a lot of practitioners, a lot of therapists that are of other cultures that work exceptionally well, with African Americans. So it's not about a race thing per se,
Mhm.
but just
Mhm.
being able to lay it out there up front, just like when you're getting to know someone, off the street in a platonic or on an intimate level, you get to know that person. You ask
Yeah.
questions and get to know them and how they practice, what their modality is, all those things. You want to understand who you're working with and who you're trusting your emotions with, who you're trusting your body with. Just like any other type of relationship, you have to kind of develop that over time. It's just not, okay, that first session, okay, now we're best buds, or no, I don't like this particular clinician or
Mhm.
physician because we didn't hit it off right off the head. But, just being able to develop that rapport over time and, just being consistent with that. I think it's a little bit more difficult with doctors in a sense
Mhm.
because you can't see them as often as you would a therapist. You might see a therapist once a week, so
Yeah.
you can develop that relationship relatively quickly, and you can kind of figure out, okay, this is the person for me or they're not for me. You can kind of get a sense of that earlier than you would be able to a physician. A lot of times, especially when I talk to women, it's off of a referral. She
Mm.
When your friends go see a doctor, and she's like, "Oh, she's awesome," and then you end up going, because
Yeah.
it's a referral buddy type system. So, in therapy, it is fairly the same, but depending on, what their issues are, that may be a deciding factor. Because
Yeah.
not all therapists are built the same. There are some really bad therapists out there. So being
Yeah.
able to identify that and being able to work around those obstacles, not everybody is flexible. During COVID, of course, we've been able to do virtual sessions and things like that, where you can kind of work outside of business hours in a sense. But
Mhm.
for the majority, since I've been practicing, I've always practiced being flexible, meeting that client where they are. So if they need something later in the evening, I try
Mhm.
to be as flexible as I can. So just understanding who you're working with and, you know, trying to get rid of those preconceived notions or biases that you may have, will allow you to kind of be open in a sense in regards to searching for someone that kind of fits your needs.
Yeah, that's good. That's good advice. So, for those of us who want to support our African American men, brothers, husbands, dads in their mental health journey, what can we do?
Be a listening ear. Validation is really key, to opening up the lines of communication and comprehension. So definitely providing a support system, a safe space, for us in a sense,
Hmm.
because there's no other place that we can go besides a barbershop or a men's club to kind of feel like we're together and we're being heard. So
Hmm.
sometimes, especially in relationships and things like that, we don't feel like we're being heard. So sometimes when we do just want to vent, when we're stressed about something or we're worried about something, sometimes we don't want the problem to be solved by the other person, but we just want to feel heard. So
Hmm.
allow that person that space and that opportunity, to be heard without, wanting to respond and kind of interject and try to solve the problem before you
Right.
kind of really know what's going on. But that's one of the biggest things that I see is that they just don't feel like they're being heard. And when they do express, it's either, thrown back in their faces later on. It's kind of used for ammunition, which
Right.
is
Yeah.
which is a whole total different conversation when we're talking about toxic relationships and things like that.
Sure.
But they've built this wall because of their experiences,
Yeah.
whether that's through interaction with other people, relationships, family, all those things. So there's a reason why men don't open up as often as they should, or trust many people as they should, because
Yeah.
they've been hurt, or bridges have been burned, or they just hadn't been taught,
Yeah.
how to communicate and to show love and receive love. Some people don't know how they want to be loved. And that's a really important factor in any type of relationship, is being able to teach people how you want to be treated.
Right.
And
Yeah.
sometimes they just don't know how that looks, in a sense. So just being able to be an open ear to them, and provide feedback when necessary.
Yeah. When necessary. Yeah. 2020 has not been the year that any of us thought it was going to be. With
Reset.
what's that?
Press the reset button. Let's just reset.
Yeah. Though I think we will end up looking back on it and we'll be blessed for it. But we're in the middle of it now, so we ain't got that awareness yet now.
Right. Right.
But 2020 has been a tough year for everyone, but I would say especially for Black men, in the sense that we're having this pandemic going on right now. We're having the reoccurrences of the racial killings right now of Black men, but this year started off with a surprise trauma, and that was the killing. And that was the death of Kobe Bryant. And that death obviously took so many people by surprise. And, I'm sure that it triggered a lot of people, but I saw where I have never seen before. Now, there's been plenty of Black male athletes that have perished before their time, but it was something about Kobe's death that I saw Black men feeling more comfortable displaying emotions. And why do you think that was? What was it about the death of Kobe that, to me, I say, allowed Black men to feel all their feelings?
It was a culmination of things. It was a culmination of watching Kobe, and he was maybe like a year older than me. So watching him from high school all the way up to being a man, family man, married, the whole nine, very successful, businessman, athlete, all those things, and what he was trying to do. You saw the glimpses, you saw what he was trying to evolve to. Once he retired, you saw what impact he left on the game itself, on the court, but also off the court. As far as being a family man, being a father, being there for his family, providing community outreach programs and the different things that he was involved in. I think it touched a lot of us, especially anywhere from 25 to 50. We grew up, looking at Kobe. And it was just one of those things that he was like our modern day Jordan. It's almost on the same level. If Jordan were to die, you have a whole population of people that would be severely impacted. And it just shows his overall global impact. It took me back to when Michael Jackson died, or when Tupac died, or because you see the impact, the world impact that he did in bringing different cultures together, through the avenue of basketball. And so I think when it happened, of course, because it came out of the blue, he wasn't
Mm-hmm.
sick or anything like that. It
Yeah.
was an accident. So anything that's out of the norm or not expected, it definitely hits you a little different. And I think just the overall exposure of his impact and people talking about him on a regular basis while
Mm-hmm.
playing basketball, and even afterward, he was still revered. You can't talk about basketball without talking about Kobe, and
Yeah.
to have one of those figures leave way before his time, was definitely impactful. So I think it was just the way that he died and his impact that he had on the world that kind of impacted us emotionally. I know I was grieving. Like I
Mm-hmm.
went through my process of grief, not because I'm a Lakers fan. I've been a Lakers fan since I was a child, but it I felt it. I felt the disbelief. I felt the hurt. I felt the anger. All these things. Well, why did he take a helicopter? Why didn't he just ride? I was trying to bargain within my
Mm-hmm.
own self.
Mm-hmm.
In a lot of conversations that I had with colleagues and peers of mine, it was the same sentiment. It was just like,
Yeah.
yo, like how, why? Like I can't even believe this is happening. Seeing something go across your screen saying that Kobe's dead is like, wow. So
Yeah. It's going to be one of those times that you're always going to remember where you were when you
absolutely,
found out, you know.
absolutely.
It definitely was, yeah, like I said, it just, started 2020 off in that manner. And
Hmm.
so now, we're dealing with COVID and Black people being disproportionately affected with
Right.
the virus. And then, the killing of George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery,
Hmm.
and Breonna Taylor,
Hmm.
and
Absolutely.
and the countless others that
Yes.
we don't know about,
Right.
because there's not always a cell phone. Um, but dealing with all of that, and what can we do right now to, not just for African American men, but just for all of us who are struggling right now.
Hmm.
I mean, I know it's heavy for me at times. I take my breaks and things like that. But what are some of the things that you can help tell us or help us with when we start to feel like it's too heavy to bear
Right.
and overwhelming?
Right. I mean, grief is a really difficult thing, and not only just with the passing of someone, but the loss of something or someone. It could be whether the loss of your freedom, your freedom and your ability to fly anywhere that you wanted to go or go to the store. That loss of freedom takes on its own level of grief. So in that, you have to, just like we're experiencing this new normal, you have to do things a little bit differently on a day-to-day basis to kind of help you maintain your mental health, whether that's exercising a little bit more
Mhm.
or eating better. I'm not saying be a vegan or something like that, but eating better, because a lot of us we've been home. We're
Yeah.
just really starting to like transition back into the office here and there. But for the last 3 months, we've been home, so a lot of people have gotten used to just snacking and just
Yeah.
eating when and whatever. Where normally you would have the routine. No, normally you would have the routine of like, okay, I get to work at 8, I work from 8 to like 12, and then I go to lunch, 12 to
Yeah.
1, and then from 1 to 5, I'm working. So it's kind of already been broken down for you. But when
Sure.
you're at home, it's like, okay, well, I can just get up, I'll log
It's right
in,
there.
do some stuff. The refrigerator's right there. Let me step over here and grab something. It's not a banana or orange or an apple. It's usually
Nah.
leftovers from last night and a biscuit and some French toast, which that really sounds good right about now. But that's a whole nother story. But that particular routine, just developing a new routine, whether that's from what you're eating, exercising, doing something for yourself on a daily basis. I encourage everyone to find that thing or things that they can do throughout the day that's going to make you feel happy, whether
Yeah.
that's for parents getting away from their kids for 30 minutes to an hour, just going in the bathroom and just running your bath, with some bubbles and things like that, and just, get missing for a little bit.
Yeah.
or going for that walk, getting that vitamin D during the day. I do a lot of meditation and grounding. I do
Okay.
my grounding every morning where I go outside, stand in the grass barefooted, and just try to meditate for pretty much 20 to 30 minutes or something like that, where I'm
And what does
focusing
that
on.
do for you? What does meditation do for you, for those of us who don't know?
It helps me maintain my own balance and align myself on a daily basis. Help me get rid of like negative thoughts, automatic negative thoughts, or something that has been weighing on me heavily. Uh,
Mhm.
and I do it religiously. I have to do it every day. Otherwise, I'm a Libra. That's my sign. So when I'm out of whack, like I'm really out of whack. So I try to maintain this balance. The you know I'm gonna shake a little bit, but as close as
Yeah.
I can get to balance, I do that. But make sure that you're practicing some gracefulness within yourself, understanding
Yeah.
that you're just one person, and doing this whole COVID thing, you've been having to be an employee or employer, you have having to be teacher, you've been having to be mom, you still have to be wife, husband, all of these different roles
Hmm.
all within the same time because you're still under the roof, so the kids are still over
Yeah.
there. They still need to be tended to. You still need to reply to emails and do the necessary things that you need to do for your job. So practicing just being graceful and being grateful in a sense to like, what, it's okay that if I don't do this or I
Yeah.
don't do that, and just prioritizing what's important. Sometimes it may be more important for you to be mom right now than to
Hmm.
be the employee. So it's going to shift oftentimes. And, I think people are trying to be everything to everyone,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. That's a sure
and
way for disaster. That's a sure way for resentment. That's a sure
right,
way for exhaustion. It's not, I call it the work-life balance, work-life balance, work-life balance
right.
myth, right?
Yes,
There
yes.
is no work-life balance
There isn't.
because that means you are trying to, like you said, be equal to everything, to everybody all the time,
Right.
and that's just not possible.
It's not
Um,
possible.
yeah,
It's not. And a colleague of mine, she gave me this quote, and I told her I would use it fairly often. But she said, if everything is important, nothing's important. If
wow,
everything is on the same level, there is nothing that's priority.
that's
Everything
right.
is, nothing is really important if everything is on the same level.
That's right.
So
Yeah.
definitely take that, utilize that, and know it's going to fluctuate. Sometimes you may need to be wiped a little bit more than, whatever. So just being
Hmm.
able to be fluid, in your positions, because everybody has multiple roles.
That's
We
right.
can't be, all of them at one time, and then
Yeah.
still be able to fill your own cup. A lot of us is, we're
Right.
pouring from an empty cup and then wonder why our relationships are impactful because we're pouring out negativity because we're on E. And so being able to fill yourself
Yeah.
up with what pleases you will be in the end beneficial for everyone because you'll be in a better space overall.
Absolutely. I mean, I am a self-care love advocate. I've seen how it has impacted my life in more positive ways than I can explain. I had came from a conditioning and the narrative that putting self first was selfish,
Hmm.
or that it was not the thing to do, because at the time I was a wife and I'm a mother and I'm a employee, all those different types of things. So uh, Carmen came fourth or fifth or
Mm,
whatever, but she wasn't happy,
right.
right? She wasn't happy, but she was expected to give to all those other things that were placed ahead of her. And so, it wasn't until I understood and learned, like you said, how can I pour into my job, my relationships, my kids, my family? How can I pour into them when I'm empty? And the thing that I learned was that it ain't nobody else's responsibility to fill me up but
Exactly.
mine,
Exactly. They can
but
add
mine.
to it.
Absolutely.
They can add to it, but it's not
Yeah.
their responsibility, their sole responsibility to fill
Right.
you up. You know,
Right.
you,
Right. At
you
the end of the
give from your
day,
overflow. You give
there
from
you
your
go.
overflow.
There you go. Absolutely. And so learning what self-care love means to me, and it's different for everybody.
Mhm.
But it is something that we all should strive to do a better job in of taking care and loving ourselves so
Mhm.
that we can have that relationship, you know, with the others and with our jobs that we want to be able to have. So, what are some of, so you said meditation was one of your self care.
Yeah.
What are some other things that you do for self care?
Oh man, I'm a creator, so creating, although sometimes it may be time consuming, that allows me to focus on that one thing. You know, I'm not
Yeah,
concentrating on anything else except that. I'm just in the moment. Um, I'm an outdoors type of person. You know,
me too.
if I can make it to a beach, I will go at the drop of a hat. Like I'll be ready to go. That's what I've been struggling with over this last 3 months. I haven't been able to go like I wanted to,
Same.
but I had to sneak away a couple of weeks ago. I did sneak away for a day or two. But you know, for me, I'm a water boy, so being by the beach is like my zen. You know,
Hmm.
if I can live on the beach, I probably would. Um, Water, you know, being outside, sun, you know, I call that sun therapy. You know, vitamin D helps, you know, reduce negative symptoms and kind of helps
Hmm.
balance us out just from a natural standpoint.
Yes.
Um, Also, socialization is really big, and I
Yeah.
think that's why it's been an increase in like depression and anxiety because we haven't really been able to socialize and interact with people like face to face like we really want to. Like I automatically want to hug people when I see them, and now
Yeah.
I have to like second guess like I
Give him the fist bump.
get on the elbow, you know what I mean? So a lot of those small things impact you emotionally. So just interacting, whether that's through Zoom, doing the Zoom
Hmm.
parties or whatever the case may be, or you know, going to a park and kind of keeping your distance, but just interacting and doing certain things like
Yeah.
that will definitely help, you know, promote self-care for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that was one of the things for me that I would say that I really was concerned about going into this quarantine, was the isolation piece. I just was like, you know, I don't know, you know, especially when they took my gym away. I was like, oh, I was like, this is
Oh
too
my
much.
goodness. It didn't affect me that much because when I wasn't they were just taking my money every month. That's it. They were just taking it. Because I wasn't going. I was not going.
Well,
I used to play flag football for my, you know, for my cardio and things like that. I still
okay, me too. I used to play flag football when I used to live up in Washington D.C.
oh wow. See
Yeah,
here.
I
But I did it
know.
for like 15 years and like this year was like last year I was like, all right, you know, I'm gonna let y'all have this. I know when to say when. I'm not gonna be
Oh,
this
you hung up
person
your
on
cleats then?
here. Yeah, I had to hang them up. I had to hang 'em up. So only time I'm coming out is for like a what do you call it? Like a special event or something like that.
Okay,
Like, you know,
okay.
some charity event or something. I'll do that. I'll do it back in that way. But as far as competitively, nah, I'm not gonna do it. But that was one of
Yeah.
the things that I did for self-care, you know,
Mm-hmm,
because it
mm-hmm.
allowed me to socialize with a group of men. You know, we met often, we hung out with each
Absolutely.
other, we traveled with each other, all of those things. So when you lose one thing, you have to replace it with something else.
That's
So I've
right.
been replacing it
Mm-hmm.
with my creative juices and you know establishing platforms and
Same.
opportunities for myself. So
Yeah, absolutely. Same here. That's where I turn there and into the fridge. So yeah. Awesome. But so now I want to have a little fun with you.
absolutely.
So I got some lightning round questions that I'm just going to fire off to you.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
You don't have very long to think about them. You got to answer them and you got to keep them moving.
Okay.
Okay.
Ready.
All right. Texting or talking?
Talking.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, you from my era.
Talking. Yeah.
Favorite day of the week?
Friday.
Friday. Okay. Sunday. I love Sundays.
Close to
Invisibility.
Monday.
But I love Mondays.
Oh, well, there
I
you have it.
know. I'm one of those. I'm one of those.
Mm.
I love Mondays, but anyway. Invisibility or mind reading?
Invisibility.
Why?
I don't want to know what other people are thinking. I would rather them tell me. But if I'm invisible, I can kind of be anywhere and everywhere. So I really don't have to read your mind. I can just be there and you not know that I'm there. And that's like
Creepy.
that's the integrity part. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's the integrity part. Like, are you really the person that you say you are? I don't have to read your mind.
Right.
I can just be
Yeah.
there when you think I'm not there. So
Right.
invisibility.
Right.
Yeah.
I think I want to be a mind reader. I think I am so interested in what goes on in people's heads and how
Mm.
they think, and and things like that. I'm scared to be invisible because I don't know what I'm gonna see.
I think of like that movie that was it Mel Gibson, but Taraji P. Henson, I think, or one of those,
Yeah.
like What Women Want or What Men Want.
Right. Yes.
I'm just afraid to hear everyone's thoughts. Like, I don't want to
Okay.
hear all that.
Okay. I get that.
You know, I may want to hear like what a woman thinks about me or something like that. If I'm approaching her to see if I got a chance or something like that, that may be helpful. But
Okay.
other than that, it's okay.
Is it wrong for a vegetarian to eat animal crackers?
Yes, no, because we're talking about the shape. Crackers it's just the shape, it's not an actual animal. So no, they shouldn't feel bad for it. Well,
Okay.
that was a funny, I never heard that before. That's funny. Wow.
Cake or pie?
Cake.
Yeah. Godfather or Star Wars?
Godfather.
Mm.
I'm not like a Trekkie like type
That's
of
Star
Star Wars
Trek.
type.
That's Star Trek.
Star Wars, Luke
All right.
Skywalker.
Let me tell you, them Star Wars people will come after you. It's Star
Don't hate
Trek.
me, you guys. Don't hate me. Don't hate me.
Have you ever been to Africa?
No, I haven't, but that is a dream of mine to make it there.
Same. Yeah, me too.
Yes. Yes.
Tupac or Biggie?
But you see it back there. You see it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Funny story. Funny story about Tupac. Funny story about me. I'm really about to put myself out there like that. So I I grew up. I grew up in the '90s, and I wasn't really into the early '90s rap, the gangster rap, and all that kind of stuff like that.
Mhm.
I just didn't know. I just went into it.
Right.
But it was something about when I was introduced to Tupac, and I think it might have been around 1995 or
Mhm.
96 ish, or no, 95. Yeah, 94, 95.
Yeah.
Anyway, that brother just, so when I tell you a girl who ain't listened to no gangster rap, but she had California love bumping her little red Geo Prism, okay, thinking she was so hard. Yeah,
Right. Right.
how do you
Right.
want it? All I want.
Yes.
Oh my
Yes.
God. So he was my
Absolutely.
introduction into the hip hop rap game, so to speak.
Absolutely.
Yeah, loved him. Just
It was he had like different levels. So I was
most
able
of
to relate to that as far as like, everybody thought he was a thug, but he was more, I mean, he
mm,
was militant, he come from a militant background. He
right.
was an avid reader.
Hmm.
He was a student, you know what I mean? And an overall artist. And that was just one part of who he was or a
Hmm.
persona that he gave out. But, after studying and researching and just seeing an evolution, that was definitely one of my favorite artists of all time, outside
Most
of Prince.
most def. Yeah, I definitely. I mean, he is one of those people who I say has layers, right?
Mhm.
There's layers to him. He's just not
Right,
one dimensional.
right.
Um, Would you eat a day-old taquito from 7-Eleven?
No.
What is a taquito?
It's a little small it's kind of long, but they're skinny. So it looks like a toasted roll up or something like that.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
They may have like beef in the middle of it or chicken and cheese or something like that. So it's kind of like a quesadilla that's been rolled,
Rolled up.
like a joint or something like that. Yeah.
Okay. So you wouldn't eat it?
No.
All
I
right.
don't like those things from like the gas stations. Like I don't know how long it's been sitting out there.
that makes sense. That makes sense. Last question for you. LeBron or Michael?
Michael.
Oh man, get out of here. Get out of here.
I mean, I often go with the originator. There will be many after Michael, but there's only one Michael. I mean, there's going to be there's only one LeBron.
I
but
agree.
he mimicked his game after a lot of different people that were before him. Whether you're talking about Magic, Michael, a little bit of Kobe in there as well, and other influencers, but Michael was like before his time. Like he revolutionized the game. So from a branding standpoint, everybody mimicked Michael Jordan. Everybody wanted Jordans. Even the most popular person or celebrity wanted Jordans. They wanted to be like Mike. And, I think he just started the whole revolution, sports marketing, all of those things. Like he was the first. So I always go with the first.
You always go with the first. Gotcha. Yeah, I'm team Ron. So, I just, for me, he's just an overall package. And it's nothing to diss Michael because I love Michael. I loved Michael growing up. But there's just something that I feel is just a little bit different and an X factor when it comes to LeBron. But I love all three of the Kobe's, the LeBrons, and the Michaels. So, but I like asking people that because I like to know if they're on my team or not. So,
because he's on the Lakers right now, I'm with him. Like we're good.
My
but,
dad.
He's good with me right now. But I mean, I get what you're saying. I from that standpoint, him just being an overall player, passer, shooter, defender, all those things. But still, Mike. He's always chasing Mike. He's still chasing 6 rings.
I got you.
Yeah.
Okay.
You working on me though? You trying to break me down?
I'm trying to break you down, but I'm gonna let us end right here, okay? Because you gave us some really dope, good information on mental health and for men and that for African American men, and I just want to say thank you so much for this information. I love all the wonderful things that you're doing out there. I mean, you're doing the thing, and you're being an example, and I just hope more of our men understand and get the importance of mental health wellness and start to make, more progress there. I feel like it will be something so liberating for our Black men, so freeing for our Black men, especially now with everything that's going on. And so I just hope that you keep doing your thing and keep helping our brothers and our sisters. And so tell the listeners, how they can follow you, reach out to you, and some of the things that you're doing now.
Yeah, you can absolutely follow me on all social media. I'm not really big on the Twitter and Snapchat yet and TikTok, but definitely Facebook, Damion, Dameon. It's not my government, but you get the idea. -DASH. On Facebook and on Instagram, it's not your average _therapist. Recently changed it to that. But you can find all of my social media outlets on my website, DamionHarmon.com, and also The Couch, my platform, on all social media outlets at The Couch 704 and thecouch704.com. So I have a website for that as well. We got some other things coming, but you'll hear about it real soon, real soon.
All right, all right. Excited about that. Well, thank you again, Damion. I appreciate you being here. God bless and thanks.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.